Greetings. This is Dr. Welch again. This will be tape 5. I think I had inadvertently said the last tape was tape 6. That was incorrect. That was tape 4. So the past tape was tape 4, and this is tape 5 as we come to the conclusion of our contract law questions. The next question concerns the Fifth Amendment. The Fifth Amendment protects individuals against self-incrimination. Which of the following may be allowed? A, an individual's testimony incriminating himself? No, that could not be correct. B, a corporation's executive's testimony incriminating himself? No, that would be incorrect. C, business records that incriminate both corporation and executive. Okay, that would be allowed, that the records can come in. There's a famous case against the Ford Motor Company where there was a lawsuit about the Pinto. And what happened, they were able to subpoena the records in which there was a calculation made about what would be best, to suffer the injuries or to repair the part on the Pinto. And then the decision was made based on those business records in which not to do the repairs. So that's a very good example of that provision. But to summarize the Fifth Amendment, out of your own mouth, you do not need to incriminate yourself. And if you're asked, have you ever been arrested for armed robbery? Well, an arrest is equivocal. And if you say, did you ever perform an armed robbery? A person could say, Fifth Amendment, no incrimination. We see a lot of these congressional hearings in which the Fifth Amendment is pled. It's often called pleading the Fifth. The next question, the Constitution specifies a long list of congressional powers, and that's true. And this long list is in Article 1, Section 8. That's where the Congress gets their power. So the leader of the Congress, before he goes to bed and says his prayers, he would tuck Article 1, Section 8 under his pillow. The governors of each of the states would tuck the 10th Amendment. That's the state's police power. That's where the states get their power. So it's important to distinguish between Article 1, Section 8, and the 10th Amendment. Okay, the next one, the Supreme Court does not recognize that free speech applies to commercial and political speech by businesses. True or false? That would be false, that in addition to the fact that individuals have freedom of speech in these areas, the court has found that businesses also have the freedom of speech. The next question, the Sixth Amendment addresses the right of a person to trial by jury in civil cases. And that would be false because it is the Seventh Amendment. The Sixth Amendment addresses the right to a jury trial in criminal matters, but in civil matters, then who does that? It would be the Seventh Amendment is the one that would be doing that. Okay, what is the balancing test in constitutional law? Okay, there, if you think of a scale and the pendulum, on the one side is to look at the state's interest. What is the state's interest in health, safety, morals, welfare? And that would be balanced against what is the burden on the constitutional rights, such as freedom of travel and so forth. So if we take the Arizona case, where Arizona said to go through the state you had to have the fancy mud guards, well, yes, the interest is the safety and the health of the residents, but what's the burden on interstate commerce? It's a big burden for truckers to have to spend 45 minutes doing that. And then you can also balance in the freedom of religion area. Some people think that you should go to school only to the 8th grade. That's the Amish. Well, what was the state's interest? Yeah, the state has a compulsory education interest. But what's the burden on the Amish? Well, that's a big burden if they would have consequences from breaking their religious rules by going to school past the 8th grade. And they said the Amish have always been peace-loving, and so because of that, the burden on the state was found not to be that much, and the Amish people were allowed not to have to go to school beyond the 8th grade. The freedom of speech is absolute. That's false. None of our rights are absolute in the Constitution. There requires a balancing. You cannot yell fire in a crowded theater. You cannot defame a person. You cannot say fighting words. Next, some of the powers given to Congress by the Constitution. What are they? Well, the big one is the Commerce Clause, and there's other provision like raising and supporting armies and naturalization. There's a very big list enumerated in Article 1, Section 8, and when the government is acting, the federal Congress, they must be acting according to one of those powers. I say it's like picking a peg to coin money, to do all of these things. That is the end of constitutional law.